Something's different about the car exhaust I'm breathing lately. Now it combines the worst qualities of burning rubber and skunk. Ah, the mountain air. I've been following the old Spanish Trail pretty much since I left Provo. That was a few hundred miles back. And looking at the kind of country that people were crossing without the aid of roads, without the aid of engines, it's kind of driving home for me just the lengths that people will go to in the name of looking for something better. The idea that people in California were that desperate or that curious about what they could get from New Mexico, and vice versa. The grass is a lot greener on the other side.
I reached Durango at the end of a 33-mile day. My hosts in town were actually away from home visiting family for Thanksgiving. So when I reached their house in the dark and heard a dog barking through the door, I got through them by phone and interrupted them at dinner. The dog turned out to be friendly, but I'd made a bad impression. Then my girlfriend and I broke up. I went for a walk. My host called on the way back to ask how things were going, and when I told her how the day had gone, she laughed at me. A small voice in my ear on the side of the road.
How long are you staying in Durango?
So hopefully leaving Tuesday morning because I'm having some electronics issues that can probably only resolve on Monday. And I'm also hoping to do an interview while I'm here for the project I'm working on while I'm traveling.
What are you doing? What's the project?
Well, it's these interviews on the transportation and also telecommunications history. So one thing that I haven't done is talk to a sort of local internet company anywhere, and there's one here.
I'd gone for that hike to clear my head. Hideous stabbing pain in my knee wasn't part of the plan, but it was part of the picture now. I picked myself up from the mud to find that my knee still worked, which pretty well confirmed that I was dealing with torn cartilage, and had been all along. Permanent injury. In the long term, a broken leg would have been better. So, back down. My host came home with their very young son, and there I was. First week of December. The temperature was dropping and another storm was blowing in. I was still looking at more than 200 miles over 7,000 feet. Things could get difficult. I bought a steel thermos and an insulated bag to improve my chances of keeping at least a liter of water in a liquid state. After dinner, which I'd helped to cook, my host cornered me in the kitchen and told me I'd been a bad guest. She said I was aloof, ungrateful, and ungracious, and that I needed to show more humility. Then she asked why I wasn't standing up straight. I told her I was feeling down.
My name is Jeffrey Gavlinski. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Skyworks Industries. Skyworks was formed in 2003, and since 2003, we've been a microwave-based broadband service provider, internet service provider. I also chair a local technology planning team for Southwest Colorado. We're focused on serving our underserved and unserved areas of Southwest Colorado as it relates to broadband. The western slope of Colorado tends to be a very challenging for broadband infrastructure given the terrain. You've got to deal with a lot of high passes and rocks, and then once you get infrastructure in the ground, if it's fiber-based infrastructure, then you have to worry about rock slides, avalanche. Our service today requires line of sight, as all microwave-based internet service providers do. If you're building a tower above 10, 12,000 feet, a lot of times there isn't readily available electricity. So one of the things that we've been fortunate with is engineering our own custom solar solution. Our network, we have the only redundant network that runs west to east, east to west in southern Colorado.
What does redundant mean in this case?
So it means that our network starts in Durango and goes all the way to Colorado Springs and terminates there, and then also starts in Colorado Springs and comes on a different path and comes all the way to Durango. So that means that if one side should fail, there's a failover to the other side of our network, so that our customers don't suffer with outages.
And otherwise, every other company in this corner of the state would have a problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of the companies in town here typically go down to Albuquerque in terms of that's where their backhaul goes. And so if the fiber were to be cut, say between here and Farmington, New Mexico, then most of these places would go dark. Invariably, this happens every year. Think about this for a second. If you're in a place that is really dependent, you're in a community that is dependent on tourism, and you don't have a redundant broadband in your community, and fiber gets cut. Typically, a fiber cut can take anywhere from 4 to 12 hours to fix. If your internet goes dark, well, then you can't process credit cards. The impact economically is tremendous. Somewhere near Steamboat Springs, I think they lost close to $1 million in an 8 or 9 hour period. And then, of course, there's location-neutral businesses. One of the reasons why people live on the western slope of Colorado is because, look around you, right? So it's the rafting, it's the hiking, it's the mountain biking, it's the skiing. It's just the beauty of where we live. And so it's a lifestyle choice to be here. And there are a lot of people today who work for large corporations who don't have to be tied down to an office location. So as long as they have access to an airport, they can live wherever they want. These type of people are called location-neutral employees. And if you think about the impact they have to your community, it's actually fairly profound, because typically those people earn over, they're six-figure-a-year earners. Their money isn't made here, it's made somewhere else, but they're spending their money in your community. Their contribution to their local community is as great or greater than any other industry sector. But nobody knows about them, right? Because they're quietly living in communities, and unless they're part of unless they're part of, charitable organizations or some other organization that has some visibility, you're not really going to know who they are and why they're there. If you want to attract more location neutral employees to your part of Colorado, then you better have the infrastructure to support that. You go north of here about 4 hours and there's a community called Marble, Colorado. They have nothing. So right now, teachers in the Marble School District have to drive 30 miles one way to upload anything that they're required to upload on the internet. Now next year, the state of Colorado will be required, all the school districts within the state of Colorado will be required to take PARCC tests. And PARCC is a national educational program where students take tests to see how they're compared with their peers. But what they're doing with PARCC, they're saying is if you don't pass these tests, you don't move on to the next grade. So they're really important. Some sort of solution needs to come from the community, the region, and the state. If you look at for example, the safety implications of busing kids to the nearest town so that they can do whatever it is, take these tests.
Yeah.
Right? What's the safety factor?
What does that do to the kids' test performance if they're...
Well, that too. You could probably find this case across the West. If you have a town of 200 or 300 people, right? Who's going to make a business case for that? Is there grant funds, state funds, federal funds to offset the cost of building an infrastructure? In Colorado, there's a thing called a high cost fund, which everybody pays into. It's a $50+ million a year fund. The larger carriers get the lion's share of those funds. But the problem is that, like everything else in this country, if they can't make a business case to spend the money in the high cost area, despite the fact they're getting money to offset the cost of upgrading or putting in new infrastructure in high cost areas, they're not typically doing it. For example, in Southwest Colorado, we have really good infrastructure here in the core part of town. But as soon as you start to go outside of town, all that breaks down.
As I packed to leave, the man of the house gave me some Thanksgiving turkey, the loan of his winter sleeping bag, and a hug. And that's how I left Durango.